The dim lights of the subterranean medical cavern flickered as another orbital bombardment shook dust from the ceiling. Riley Hayes wiped sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of blood across his forehead. The air hung heavy with the metallic scent of blood and the acrid smell of cauterized flesh. Moans and cries echoed through the tunnels as wounded soldiers waited for treatment. "I need more biofoam over here," Riley called out, pressing his hands against the gaping wound in Private Ellison's chest. The young soldier's eyes were wide with fear, his breathing shallow and rapid. "Coming!" shouted a nurse, weaving between cots filled with the broken bodies of humanity's defenders. 6 months into humanity's first large-scale war against the Velran Empire, and the casualties were mounting. Riley had been a combat medic for 12 years, but nothing had prepared him for the brutality of this conflict. The Velrans, with their biomechanical war beasts bonded to alien commanders, were unlike any enemy humanity had faced. Another blast rocked the cavern, closer this time. Loose rocks tumbled from the ceiling. "They're getting more accurate," muttered Sergeant Walsh, limping past with a plasma burn across his leg. "Command says we're holding the line, but—" Riley nodded grimly, applying the biofoam to Ellison's wound. The material expanded, sealing the injury and delivering analgesics directly to the site. The private's eyes fluttered as the pain medication took effect. "You'll be okay, son," Riley said, though he wasn't entirely convinced. "Just hang in there." A military doctor, Dr. Reeves, approached, her face etched with exhaustion. "How many more coming in?" "Transport says at least 30 more incoming. Velran forces broke through the western perimeter. They've got those damn war beasts leading the charge." Dr. Reeves cursed under her breath. "We're already at capacity. We need to evacuate the critical cases." "Evac ships are all committed to the orbital defense," Riley replied, moving to the next patient. "We're on our own for at least 6 more hours." The cavern shook violently, and this time chunks of rock crashed down. One section of the field hospital collapsed entirely, burying several patients and medics beneath rubble. "No!" Riley sprinted toward the collapse, joined by other medical personnel. They began digging frantically through the debris. Riley found Private Morrison pinned beneath a large boulder, blood pooling around him. With the help of 2 others, Riley managed to move the rock and pull Morrison free. The private's legs were crushed, but he was alive. "Stay with me, Morrison," Riley urged, administering emergency painkillers and applying pressure to stem the bleeding. A blinding flash of green light erupted at the entrance of the cavern, followed by the distinctive whine of Velran plasma weapons. Riley looked up to see 3 tall, reptilian figures enter the medical area, followed by a squad of guards. Human security forces raised their weapons, but they were outmatched and outnumbered. The lead Velran, clearly an officer by the elaborate crest running down her spine, strode forward with purpose, her gold-flecked eyes scanning the room until they landed on Riley. "You," she said, her voice a melodic but alien cadence. "You are the senior medical officer." It wasn't a question. Riley carefully lowered Morrison onto a stretcher and stood, hands raised slightly. "I'm the lead field medic," he confirmed. "This is a medical facility protected under the Geneva Convention. Your attack violates. Human protocols mean nothing to the Velran Empire." The commander interrupted. Her name insignia identified her as Commander Stia. "You will accompany me immediately." "I'm not leaving my patients," Riley replied firmly. Commander Stia's guards raised their weapons, aiming at the wounded humans. "You misunderstand. This is not a request." Sergeant Walsh moved to intervene, but a plasma bolt struck him in the chest. He crumpled to the ground, dead before he hit the floor. "No more deaths need occur," Stia said coldly. "My bonded war beast, Vorak, is dying from an unknown toxin. You will save him." "Why me?" Riley demanded, even as his mind raced through possibilities. "You have your own medical teams." "They have failed," Stia replied. Her composed demeanor slipped momentarily, revealing genuine distress. The toxin appears to be of human design. Your knowledge may be his only hope. Riley looked around at the wounded soldiers, his people, his responsibility. And if I refuse? Then we will execute every wounded soldier in this facility, beginning with that one. She pointed at Private Morrison, who stared back with terrified eyes. Riley's jaw tightened. Let me stabilize the critical patients first. Stia nodded once. You have 10 minutes. Riley worked frantically, directing the remaining medical staff to move patients away from the damaged section and prioritizing those most likely to survive. He knelt beside Morrison. I have to go with them, he whispered. Try to hold on. I'll come back if I can. Morrison grabbed his wrist. Don't trust them, Hayes. They'll kill you once they get what they want. Maybe, Riley acknowledged, but they'll definitely kill all of you if I don't go. The 10 minutes passed too quickly. Riley gathered essential medical supplies in a field kit, knowing he might need them. Commander Stia's guards surrounded him, ushering him toward the exit. Dr. Reeves, Riley called out. You're in charge now. Follow Evacuation Protocol Alpha if that ceiling comes down any further. Reeves nodded, her expression grim. Good luck, Hayes. If you do not return within 6 hours, we will assume you betrayed us, one of the human officers warned. As Riley was marched outside, he saw the devastation of the battlefield for the first time in days. The once lush landscape was scorched and cratered. In the distance, human defensive lines struggled to hold back waves of Velrin attackers. A sleek, organic-looking vessel waited nearby, a Velrin transport. Unlike human ships with their hard angles and metal construction, this craft appeared almost alive, with smooth, flowing lines and a surface that pulsed subtly, like breathing. Inside, ordered one of the guards, shoving Riley forward. The interior was even more alien. Bioluminescent veins ran along the walls, casting everything in an eerie blue-green glow. The floor felt warm beneath Riley's boots, and there was a subtle vibration, like a heartbeat. Commander Stia led him through winding corridors to a chamber near the rear of the vessel. The space was larger, dominated by a massive creature lying on a platform. Riley had seen Velrin war beasts from a distance, but never this close. Vorak was at least 30 feet long, with armored scales covering a muscular, reptilian body. 6 powerful limbs ended in claws that could tear through battle armor. The beast's head featured a crown of horns and a jaw that could swallow a human whole. But now, the mighty creature lay still, its breathing labored, scales dulled. Several Velrin medics worked around the beast, monitoring equipment Riley didn't recognize. They stepped back as Stia approached, bowing their heads respectfully. This is Vorak, Stia said, her voice softening as she placed a hand on the beast's flank. We have been bonded since his hatching 17 cycles ago. Riley approached cautiously, medical training taking over. What are his symptoms? When did this start? 6 hours ago, during battle, Stia replied. He was struck by projectiles that pierced his scales. The wounds should have been minor, but he began to deteriorate rapidly. Riley examined the beast, finding several puncture wounds on its flank. The edges were swollen and discolored, oozing a viscous green fluid that seemed to be eating into the surrounding scales. This is a corrosive agent, Riley observed, taking samples and analyzing them with his portable medical scanner. But it's not just attacking tissue, it's targeting his nervous system. The scanner beeped, displaying results that made Riley frown. This toxin, it's not standard human military issue. You lie, hissed one of the Velrin medics. We detected human chemical markers. I'm not saying humans didn't use it, Riley clarified. But this compound isn't in our standard arsenal. It's too complex, too specifically designed to target Velrin physiology. He looked up at Stia. Someone went to a lot of trouble to create this. Stia's eyes narrowed. Can you neutralize it? Riley studied the scanner results. Maybe, but your physiology is different from ours. I need to understand how the toxin is interacting with his system. He worked quickly, using both his equipment and the Velrun medical technology. The toxin was unlike anything he'd encountered before, a sophisticated bioweapon that seemed designed to cause maximum suffering before death. Your treatments have failed because this isn't just a poison, Riley explained, pointing to the molecular structure displayed on his scanner. It's programmed to adapt to countermeasures. Each time your medics tried to neutralize it, it changed its configuration. The Velrun medics conferred in their own language, their tone agitated. There is a method, Riley said hesitantly, but it's primitive by your standards. Explain, Stia demanded. Oral extraction. The toxin hasn't fully dispersed into his bloodstream yet. It's concentrated around the entry wounds. If someone were to suck out the poison and spit it away, we might be able to remove enough to give his system a fighting chance. The Velrun medics recoiled, clearly horrified by the suggestion. That would require direct contact with the venom, one objected. It would kill the extractor. Not necessarily, Riley countered. Human saliva has different properties than Velrun, and I can take antitoxin injections as a preventative measure. He didn't mention that the antitoxin would only delay, not prevent, the effects. Stia studied him. You offer to do this yourself? Why? Because I'm a medic, Riley replied simply. And because you'll kill my patients if I don't. After a brief discussion among the Velruns, Stia nodded. Proceed. Riley prepared as best he could, injecting himself with broad-spectrum antitoxins and coating his mouth with a protective gel. The Velrun medics provided equipment to capture and contain the extracted venom. This will be unpleasant, Riley warned, for both of us. He approached Vorak, who watched him with intelligent, pain-filled eyes. Riley placed his hands on the warm scales, feeling the powerful muscles beneath. He took a deep breath, then bent down and placed his lips against the wound. The moment his mouth made contact, a searing pain shot through him. It was like drinking liquid fire. He began to suck, drawing the venom into his mouth, then turning to spit it into the collection vessel. Each extraction brought waves of agony, but Riley continued methodically, moving from wound to wound. On the fourth extraction, something unexpected happened. As Riley's lips touched Vorak's scales, a sudden surge of energy flowed between them. Riley's vision exploded with light, and he felt his consciousness expand. Suddenly, he wasn't just Riley Hayes anymore. He could feel Vorak's pain, his fierce loyalty to Stia, his ancient wisdom. And beyond that, he could sense Thea herself, her duty to her empire, her love for Vorak, her secret doubts about the war. Riley reeled backward, gasping. What? What was that? Stia looked equally shocked. The bond. It's impossible. No human has ever... The Velrun medics erupted in alarmed chatter. One of them approached Stia, speaking urgently. Commander, this is forbidden. The High Command will order his immediate termination. And yours as well, added another. Cross-species bonding is punishable by death. Riley struggled to his feet, his mind reeling from the psychic connection. I need to continue. He's still dying. Despite the Velrun's obvious distress, Riley returned to his task. With each extraction, the psychic bond strengthened. Images and memories flowed between the three of them, Riley, Stia, and Vorak, forming an unprecedented three-way telepathic link. Through Vorak's memories, Riley saw the war from the Velrun perspective. He witnessed Stia's anguish as she carried out orders she increasingly questioned. And through the beast's ancient lineage, he glimpsed something else, a hidden manipulation behind the conflict. The Kethmarai, Riley gasped between extractions. They're supplying both sides. They engineered this toxin. Stia's eyes widened. What are you saying? I can see it through Vorak's memories. The Kethmarai agents in your fleet. They've infiltrated your high command. Riley spat out another mouthful of venom. They've done the same to our forces. They're prolonging the war, profiting from it. After 2 hours of grueling work, Riley had extracted enough venom to give Vorak a chance. The beast's vital signs began to stabilize, and color returned to his dulled scales. Riley collapsed, exhausted and in pain. The protective measures he'd taken had minimized the toxin's effects, but he could still feel it burning through his system. "Your medical team can take over now," he said weakly. "The adaptive phase of the toxin has passed. Standard treatments should work." As the Velrin medics rushed to administer care to Vorak, Stia knelt beside Riley. Through their new bond, he could sense her conflicted emotions. "You saved him," she said. "For that, I am grateful." "What happens now?" Riley asked, already knowing the answer through their shared thoughts. "Protocol demands your execution," Stia replied quietly. "You have accessed Velrin military secrets through the bond, and She hesitated. "I am to be recalled for punishment. But first, we must report to High Command." Riley nodded, too exhausted to argue. The bond had shown him that Stia was as much a prisoner of duty as he was. As Riley rested, recovering from the effects of the toxin, Stia received a transmission from Velrin High Command. Though she spoke in her native language, Riley could understand through their bond. The orders were clear: return to the command ship immediately, where Riley would be executed and Stia would face charges for allowing the bond to form. Simultaneously, Riley's comm unit activated. It was Dr. Reeves. "Hayes, are you there? If you can hear this, don't return to base. Human High Command has labeled you a Psi variant. They're sending a special ops team to retrieve you for study." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They plan to dissect you. Riley. Something about psychic contamination. Get away if you can." Riley looked at Stia, who had clearly heard the message. "Seems neither of us has a home to return to." Through their bond, a plan began to form. Not from either of them, but from Vorak. The ancient war beast, now recovering, had wisdom beyond either of their experiences. His thoughts flowed into them both. Escape, find proof, expose the Kethmarai. "We need to get to Prometheus 7, Riley said. The destination pulled from Vorak's knowledge. "It's a neutral station. We might find evidence there." Stia nodded slowly. "It is where many arms dealers conduct their business, including those who supply both sides." "Can we trust your crew?" Riley asked. Stia's expression hardened. "No. They will follow High Command's orders. Then we need to move quickly." Using their newfound bond, the three formulated a plan. While most of the crew was occupied with Vorak's treatment, Stia led Riley to a smaller vessel attached to the main ship, her personal transport. "This craft is bonded to me," she explained as they boarded. "It will respond only to my commands." Vorak, still weak but mobile, forced himself to his feet and followed them. His massive form barely fit through the corridors, but he moved with surprising grace for his size. As they reached the transport bay, an alarm sounded. "They've discovered our intent," Stia said grimly, rushing to the controls. The transport, an organic vessel even more alive than the main ship, pulsed in response to Stia's touch. Vorak settled into a recessed area, clearly designed for him, while Riley strapped into a seat that conformed to his body. "Hold on," Stia warned as she initiated launch procedures. The bay doors began to close, attempting to trap them inside. Stia directed energy to the transport's weapons, blasting the doors open. They shot out into space amid a hail of plasma fire from the main vessel. "They're pursuing," Riley observed, watching the displays. Through their bond, he could partly understand the Velrin control systems. "As are your people," Stia added, indicating another cluster of signals. "Human vessels have been alerted to your contamination." The small transport accelerated, darting between debris from the ongoing battle. Stia's piloting skills were remarkable, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. "We can't outrun them all," Riley noted. "We need a distraction." Vorak rumbled, projecting an image through their bond, the main battle lines, where human and Velran fleets were engaged. "Yes," Stia agreed, understanding immediately. "If we can lure our pursuers into crossfire—" She altered course, heading directly toward the heaviest fighting. Their pursuers followed, apparently unwilling to risk losing them. As they approached the battle, chaos erupted. Human ships fired on Velran vessels, which returned fire with equal ferocity. Stia wove through the exchange, using the larger ships as cover. "There," Riley pointed to a gap in the fighting. "Make for that corridor." Stia nodded, pushing the transport to its limits. They shot through the opening just as several pursuing ships were caught in crossfire, exploding in brilliant flashes of light. With temporary relief from pursuit, they set course for Prometheus 7, a neutral station located in a nearby asteroid belt, known as a haven for mercenaries, diplomats, and arms dealers. It was one of the few places where both humans and Velrans could coexist, if uneasily. As they traveled, Riley felt the bond between them strengthening. Vorak's condition continued to improve, and with it, the clarity of their shared consciousness increased. Through Vorak's ancient memories, they began to piece together the extent of the Kethmarai manipulation. "They've been playing both sides for decades," Riley realized. "Before the war even started?" "The trade agreements that failed," Stia added, seeing the connections. "The terrorist attacks attributed to human separatists. And the colonial massacres blamed on Velran expansion," Riley continued. "All engineered to push us toward war." Vorak projected images of the Kethmarai, a species neither human nor Velran had directly encountered. They worked through proxies, agents altered to pass as members of other species. Their goal was not conquest but perpetual conflict, feeding an economy based on arms sales and resource exploitation. "We need proof," Riley said. "Something both our peoples will believe." Prometheus 7 came into view, a sprawling structure built into and around a cluster of asteroids. Unlike the sleek human stations or the organic Velran habitats, Prometheus 7 was a patchwork of architectural styles, reflecting its diverse population. They docked at a remote bay, paying handsomely for discretion. The station's security was minimal. It survived by maintaining neutrality and asking few questions. "We should split up," Riley suggested, as they disembarked. "I'll attract less attention alone." Stia agreed reluctantly. Vorak must remain with the ship. His presence would cause panic. 2 hours, Riley said. "Meet back here with whatever we find." Riley made his way through the crowded corridors of Prometheus 7. The station was a chaotic blend of species and cultures, with marketplaces selling everything from fresh produce to military-grade weapons. He kept his head down, aware that both human and Velran authorities would have agents here. His first stop was a data broker, a 6-armed alien who specialized in information. The broker was initially reluctant to help, but Riley's medical skills proved useful in treating a persistent infection in one of the broker's arms, earning him cooperation. "Kethmarai," the broker whispered, displaying data on a secure terminal. "Very dangerous to discuss. They have eyes everywhere." The information confirmed what they had learned through Vorak. The Kethmarai operated through shell companies and proxies, supplying weapons to both sides while ensuring the conflict continued. Most damning was evidence of the toxin used against Vorak, a Kethmarai bioweapon designed to target bonded war beasts, creating maximum psychological impact on Velran forces. Meanwhile, Stia had made contact with a former Velran intelligence officer who had defected after discovering partial truth about the manipulation. The officer provided access codes to classified communications that revealed Kethmarai agents within the Velrun High Command. When they reunited at the ship, both had gathered crucial evidence. Through their bond, they shared discoveries instantly, forming a complete picture of the conspiracy. "This will not be enough," Stia said. "Our leaders are too committed to the war. They will dismiss this as propaganda." Vorak rumbled in agreement, projecting an alternative: the bond itself. If they could share what they had experienced, the truth seen through Vorak's ancient memories, others might understand. "A psychic broadcast," Riley frowned. "Is that even possible?" "With amplification, perhaps," Stia replied, considering. "There are devices on the station that might serve." They found what they needed through the station's black market: psychic amplifiers originally designed for Velran military commanders to communicate with multiple war beasts simultaneously. With modifications, they might broadcast their shared consciousness to nearby ships. As they prepared the equipment, alarms sounded throughout the station. A public announcement echoed through the corridors. "Attention all inhabitants. Prometheus 7 is now under lockdown. Human and Velran military vessels have entered station space and demanded surrender of fugitives. Compliance is advised." Security footage showed both human and Velran ships docking, deploying troops that began methodical searches of the station. "We're out of time," Riley said. "We need to broadcast now, before they find us." They activated the amplifiers, connecting them to Vorak. The war beast became the conduit, channeling the shared consciousness of all three. Riley and Stia placed their hands on Vorak's scales, strengthening the connection. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Their combined consciousness expanded outward, touching the minds of everyone within range: human soldiers, Velran warriors, station inhabitants, ship crews. They shared everything: the Kethmarai manipulation, the falsified attacks, the engineered bioweapons, the agents embedded in both commands. Most importantly, they shared the truth of their bond: a human and a Velran united through a war beast, experiencing each other's perspectives, understanding each other's cultures in a way previously thought impossible. The broadcast lasted only minutes before the strain became too great. Riley collapsed, blood trickling from his nose. Stia fell to her knees, exhausted. Vorak rumbled weakly, his energy depleted. "Did it work?" Riley asked, his vision blurry. Before Stia could answer, the door to their hiding place burst open. Human and Velran soldiers stood side by side, weapons raised. Behind them stood officers from both sides, a human captain and a Velran commander. "Surrender immediately," the human captain ordered. Riley and Stia exchanged glances, then slowly raised their hands. There was nowhere to run. But something was different. Through their bond, they could sense confusion and uncertainty in the minds of their captors. The broadcast had affected them. "You shared the truth with us," the Velran commander said slowly. "About the Kethmarai." "We felt it," added the human captain. "But how do we know it wasn't some kind of psychic manipulation?" "The evidence is in your ship's databanks," Riley replied. "Check the communication frequencies we provided. You'll find proof of Kethmarai agents transmitting to hidden bases." Vorak projected an image directly into the minds of the officers, specific coordinates where Kethmarai operations could be found. The officers conferred briefly. Then, the human captain activated his comm unit. "This is Captain Harrington. I want a full scan of frequency range Theta 96, and dispatch reconnaissance to these coordinates." Within minutes, confirmations began to come in. Kethmarai communications were detected. Reconnaissance teams reported finding hidden bases, exactly where Vorak had indicated. As the evidence mounted, confusion turned to anger, not directed at Riley and Stia, but at the manipulation both sides had endured. "There are still Kethmarai agents among us," Stia warned. "They will not surrender easily." As if on cue, explosions rocked the station. Security feeds showed firefights erupting throughout Prometheus 7 as identified Kethmarai agents and their loyalists fought to escape or destroy evidence. "We need to secure the station," Captain Harrington ordered, "and establish communication with both fleet commands." The next hours were chaos, human and Velran forces. So recently, enemies found themselves fighting side by side against Kethmarai agents. Riley, Stia, and Vorak joined the effort, their bond allowing them to identify hidden infiltrators through subtle psychic signatures. The battle for Prometheus 7 was fierce but decisive. With their cover blown, the Kethmarai could not maintain their deception. Many were captured, while others fled in ships programmed to self-destruct rather than reveal their destinations. In the aftermath, leaders from both human and Velran fleets converged on Prometheus 7. Initial suspicion gave way to grudging cooperation as the extent of the Kethmarai manipulation became clear. "We've been fighting the wrong enemy," admitted Admiral Chen of the human fleet, studying the evidence. "These Kethmarai have been profiting from our conflict while positioning themselves to weaken both our civilizations." "The question remains," said Velran High Commander Tezak. "What do we do now?" All eyes turned to Riley, Stia, and Vorak. Their unprecedented bond represented something neither side had thought possible: genuine understanding between species. "We propose a truce," Riley said. "Not just a ceasefire, but the beginning of an alliance." "Our peoples are more alike than different," Stia added. "We have both been used, together. We might stand against the Kethmarai and whatever other threats await." Vorak projected images of cooperation, of shared technology, and cultural exchange. The ancient war beast had memories of a time before conflict, when different species had worked together against common threats. The negotiations were tense and difficult. Centuries of distrust could not be erased in a day. But the shared experience of the psychic broadcast had created an opening, a willingness to consider alternatives to war. 6 months later, a formal truce was signed aboard Prometheus 7, now renamed Unity Station. Representatives from both species gathered to witness the historic moment. Riley, Stia, and Vorak stood as living symbols of the new alliance. Their bond had deepened and stabilized, allowing them to serve as intermediaries between cultures. More remarkably, volunteer pairs of humans and Velrans had begun undergoing a modified bonding process, creating new psychic links that fostered understanding and cooperation. These bonded pairs became diplomats, cultural exchange officers, and joint military commanders. The Kethmarai threat remained. Intelligence suggested they had withdrawn to regroup, unhappy that their profitable war had ended. But now, they faced a united front, as human and Velran forces combined their strengths. 6 years passed. On New Harmony Station, a joint human-Velran habitat orbiting a neutral world, Riley stood on an observation deck, watching children play in a garden below. Human children ran alongside young Velrans, their laughter mingling in the artificial gravity. Stia joined him, her hand finding his. Their relationship had evolved over the years, moving from reluctant allies to respected colleagues to something deeper. The bond they shared with Vorak had made such a connection possible, bridging biological and cultural differences that might otherwise have been insurmountable. "The Harmony Dawn launches today," Stia said, nodding toward the massive shipyard visible through the viewport. Riley smiled. First of its kind, human and Velran technology working together. The Harmony Dawn was the pride of the Alliance, a starship incorporating the best of both civilizations. Human engineering precision combined with Velran organic technology, creating a vessel more advanced than either species could have built alone. Vorak rumbled contentedly from his resting place nearby. The war beast had grown even larger over the years, his wisdom and psychic abilities making him a revered figure in the Alliance. Young, bonded pairs often sought his guidance. "High Commander Tezak arrives within the hour," Stia noted. "Along with the human delegation," As leaders of the peace delegation, Riley and Stia would officiate at the launching ceremony. Their journey from enemies to partners symbolized the alliance itself. Difficult, unexpected, but ultimately transformative. As they prepared to leave for the ceremony, Riley felt a strange sensation through their bond. It wasn't coming from Stia or Vorak, but from somewhere else. "Do you feel that?" he asked, frowning. Stia nodded, her expression concerned. "It's coming from the Zeos system. The research outpost there reported unusual readings yesterday. Through their shared consciousness, they received a series of images. An inverted pyramid structure, uncloaking itself in the Zeos asteroid belt. A transmission in no known language, yet somehow understandable through their psychic bond. The architects," Vorak projected, the concept emerging from his ancient genetic memory. The message was both warning and invitation. A cosmic threat approached, the entropy, a force of dissolution that had consumed countless civilizations. The architects had seeded psychic potential throughout compatible species, preparing for this moment. The human-Velran alliance was no accident, but the first step in a greater unity needed to face the coming darkness. Riley and Stia exchanged glances, understanding flowing between them without words. Their work was far from complete. The bond that had ended one war might be the key to surviving an even greater conflict. "We should tell the Council," Stia said finally. After the launch, Riley decided, let them have this moment of hope first. They watched as the Harmony Dawn prepared for its maiden voyage, the massive ship gleaming in the light of an alien sun. Human and Velran crew worked side by side, a sight unimaginable just 6 years ago. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not as human and Velran, but as something new, something stronger. Vorak rumbled in agreement, his ancient wisdom flowing through their bond. The war beast who had nearly died from poison had become the foundation of a peace that might just save them all. As the Harmony Dawn's engines ignited, lighting up the darkness of space, Riley squeezed Stia's hand. Through their bond, a wordless promise passed between them. Whatever came next, they would meet it united. The ship accelerated away from the station, carrying the hopes of two civilizations toward an uncertain but shared future. Behind it, invisible to normal senses but clear through the psychic bond, the message from the architects echoed like a distant heartbeat. The entropy approaches. Unity is survival. You are not alone.